lot of common mistakes in this one. There were 2 that were already in standard form and 2 that needed to be fixed. The ones that were in standard form were the first and the last. The first is obvious. It only has one x variable and starts with the highest and goes to the lowest.
But that is not a polynomial.
So remember I said that polynomial means the umbrella term of everything and it's a specific thing. You have to remember that. So when it says select all the polynomials, it's not talking about the specific definition of many. It's just talking about all of them in general. And then these 2 wouldn't have been because the y would need to go at the end, the x's would need to come first, and the highest exponent would come first. So then when you fix those 2, it would be, for the middle one, 8x to the 4th minus 5x squared y squared minus 7xy plus 3y to the 4th. And then for this one, we have 2c to the 3rd plus 3c squared plus plus 5c plus 4. So ABC order first, highest exponent after that. And really you should notice that as your first variable exponent starts to go down, your other one is starting to increase, but it's still ABC order first. So then 4 points on this one. Did you get the correct ones and not get the incorrect ones? Did you fix the 2 that were right? That were wrong correctly. That's what I meant to say. Did you fix the 2 that were wrong correctly? Questions on that? Most of us got the second question right for the most part. So these were your degrees and these were your number of terms. So this one was a cubic binomial. The next one was a quadratic trinomial. The next one was a quadratic binomial. And the last one was a linear binomial. Questions on any of those? Those were, you got them right or wrong? Yes.
And what makes it quadratic?
The exponent.
So if they have an exponent, then it's a quadratic?
That depends on what the exponent is.
I think it's like if the exponent's a 2, it's quadratic.
Yes.
If it's a 3, it's cubic.
Yes.
If it's a 4, it's like.
Quintic.
And then like 5, it's like something.
Quartic. And then just switch those.
What if it's like higher than 5? If it's like
You won't see
9?
that. For me, you won't see that. Okay, other questions here? Okay. And then for this, we are raising an exponent to another exponent, so we are multiplying the exponents on the inside. So this should have been x to the 3rd, y to the 4th. You can leave them in parentheses, take them out, it doesn't matter. I am going to leave this one in parentheses just for a second. Then a common mistake I saw with this 5. Here, you are not distributing because there's not a plus or minus between this. This is 5 times this entire term. So it should just be a coefficient, not 5x to the 3rd plus 5y to the 4th. You shouldn't be separated. They are different things, but they are multiplying, not adding and subtracting. So it's not distributing. Then your final answer, these have the same exponent, so you can combine like terms, was 6x to the 3rd, y to the 4th. Your points there were, did you get these exponents correctly, this term correctly, and the final term correctly?
Wait, is it gonna be wrong if you put a 1 in front of the y?
Like this.
Oh, no, like at the bottom of the answer. Yeah, like that.
I would say don't do that. Because then you might separate it again.
But it's not wrong
Thank you.
there.
There is technically a 1 there, but I wouldn't put it. Okay. Most of us had this, but then didn't put it in scientific notation correctly. So if we were multiplying the numerator first, that'd be 24 times, we'd be adding the exponents, 10 to the 16th, over 5 times 10 to the 14th. But 24 times 10 to the 16th is not in scientific notation. So we have to change that first. Move the decimal place to the left. So add an exponent. And then most of us did this, but some of us did not. We should be dividing these numbers, not subtracting them. To get 0.48. And subtracting the exponents. And then this, again, is not in scientific notation, so move the decimal. So 4.8 times 10 to the second. And leave it like that. So if you put 480, that was not in scientific notation. You also had to recognize that this was a scientific notation problem, because it didn't say. So the 4 points there were, really you could have done this a couple different ways, but if you did it this way, multiply and change this number, and have the correct exponent, and then at the end have this correct number and have the correct exponent. Remember that you can double check for yourself in the calculator, so be using it. Questions on that one? And then on to the back. So there were two things I saw with this. One, some of us multiplied everything by a negative, but then left that in parentheses and multiplied everything together. We are not multiplying here except for the negative. So if you wanted to go ahead and multiply the negative, you could do that. But then you should still have parentheses, and you should be combining like terms. You're just subtracting here. So your answer should have been 2x squared minus x minus 2. If you did anything other than this, or maybe you did it in the parentheses and got this, that was fine. But box method doesn't apply here. We're not multiplying terms together here, just the negative to everything else. So your 3 points were, did you get these terms correct? Questions on that? And then the area problem we had some issues with also. Let's see. Remember that area is length times width, which means we're multiplying this to this. And when we multiply binomials together, you have to multiply everything. Some of us did this, got those two answers, and didn't multiply anything else. But we should be multiplying, or some of us did this and this, something like that. But this should have been negative 18x squared, we're adding the exponents, positive 24xy, positive 15xy, and then negative 20y squared. And then combine like terms. So negative 18x squared plus 39xy minus 20y squared was the final answer. And the 5 points on that were, did you get these 4 terms correct and your final answer correct? Questions there? After we go over the SOL 4c through 5b, you'll have time to continue to practice, review, things like that. I did want to show you your delta mass really quickly. You guys had 2 that were due on Friday. 1 was the scientific notation. So some of you did this, some of you started it, some of you need to finish this one, as well as the other one. The polynomial operations. So if you have not done these or have not finished them, go back and do that in a moment. Go ahead and take out your SOL packet. I'll come around and check that, and then I'll talk about the other page. So the first 4 questions were literal equations, solving for a specific variable. So these you do have to write down all the work. Let's see. If the capital letter in this throws everything else off, when I think the equals, I tried putting these specifically in Desmos and it didn't really like it. Some examples can be done in Desmos, but not these ones exactly. So the easiest way to do this one would be to multiply both sides by 2 first. And then we'll talk about this, but basically we're undoing the distributing because they both have an h, and usually when we distribute, we multiply the h to everything. So if we take the h out and see what's left, then we can divide this stuff that's missing here. Divide both sides by a minus b. So then h equals 2a over a minus b would be our final answer there. You're kind of doing the same thing for 19, taking the a out of both and dividing both sides by 3 plus 5c. For 20, they give you this scenario, but really you just need the equation. And you are solving for h in part A and solving for b in part B. So for h, we could subtract both sides by 2b and divide both sides by c. And for part B, to solve for B, subtract HP on the other side and divide both sides by 2.
This was
Most of the other ones are Desmos questions. So you should have been using Desmos, putting those in. You could always do it by hand as well. So 21, 7 equals x or x equals 7, either or doesn't matter. Because it only asks us to find the x value, not the whole ordered pair. For 22, no solution. We try for half and design. 23 was C. 24, x equals 6. 25 was also x equals 6. 26 was B. 27, you really just need these two equations and this ordered pair and this answer. The rest is, you can write that if you want. But you had to set up your two equations first, which if you use Desmos, you have to use x and y. So 1.5x plus 3y, equals 28.5, and then x plus y equals 15. If you put those in, they cross at 11.4. And we're looking for bottles of juice, which was our y value. (28) and 29, you don't have to write this work, you can really just write the answer, but you can write the work if you so choose. 28, the answer was x equals 2. It also showed you on the graph, it took both sides and put them in separately and saw where they were crossed. And 29 was x equals negative 2. Then in SOL A.5b, you had to find the properties that were subtraction. So this one couldn't be done in Desmos because you need to know which ones are the properties, which would be these three. You were subtracting something to the other side on both sides. Number 2, it asked which 2 steps was the error made, and that was in the first 2 steps. Because when they distributed, they made the 6 a positive instead of a negative. In number 3, this is a Desmos question. I forgot to draw the number line, but I can remember. The answer was y is less than or equal to -6. So on a number line, that would be a closed circle going to the left. And then the last one on the next page, I'll show in just a second. Does that go ahead? So you do need to actually graph this. If you don't have your packet with you, remember to go back and graph it. If you had done this on Desmos, you wouldn't need to do this, but it should have been a dashed line shaded below with a slope of -2 and a y-intercept of 5. Everyone look at your SOL, I'm sorry, I skipped this up, Desmos, really quickly, and then I'll circle back. So all of the systems problems, if you put those in, it'll show you where they cross. You can find the x and y intercept for any of those. So this one, the multiple choice one, it said which one, I don't remember the exact answer. But as you start to put these in, you can see this one had a solution, this one had a solution, and this one doesn't. So that would have been the answer to that. This was the word problem one. If I put those in, I can see where they cross. And then I just need to know what I'm looking for, x or y. For 28 and 29, you can put that in as is and figure out what that number would be. Your inequality, you could have graphed. it gives us a solid line, which would be a closed circle, shaded to the left. And then you could put in your graph to see how that would be graphed. Okay. Now look at the SOL thing. So after the test and probably the SharkBite answer sheet, those will be the last grades that go into marking period 3. This won't be the first, but it'll be one of the formative grades that go into quarter 4. So you will need to complete 120 Jlab problems up until the SOL. So whether you knock that all out at once, you do it over time, that's completely up to you. When you get to the website, you have a choice of doing 5 problems, 10 problems, 20, or 40. You can choose to do as many as you want at a time. You just need to do 120 total by the SOL date. So on this page is the website. I will also post that in Canvas. Make sure you do all of these things, follow those directions so that you get the correct type of questions. And then after you've completed one, you're going to email me, send it to me, send it to yourself just in case it doesn't get to me. Write down the recovery code just in case you don't get it and I don't get it. On the back is where you're going to put all of that. You're going to put the number of questions you did, the score you got, the recovery code, and then at the end of the week, if not sooner, I'm going to be initialing it to say, yes, I received your email. This can be done throughout the week, but I will specifically say at the end of the week, everyone get out your Jlab sheets so I can initial it if you sent me some over the week. This does not need to be done every week. Again, you can choose, you can wait until the end and do it before the SOL. You can do it throughout, so 120 is not overwhelming. That's completely up to you. At the end, I'm going to take the average of all of your scores, and that's going to be your formative grade. Questions on any of that? As you start to get into it and have questions, just let me know. For the remainder of class, you guys can be practicing. The next SOL thing that is due next week is SOL A5 and A.B. 5c and 5b. There we go. Just those two. Again, try to use Desmos, practice for your tests, do the review, work on Delta Math, work on the Jlabs, any of those. If you didn't see my announcement on Canvas about this grade calculator, if you want to use that, that can be for any of your classes. I would say do that so you see what your grade might be in this class and other classes. And you have this time.